American Airlines, the only airline that can fly you to over 200 destinations in the United States.
At first glance, the American ad seems hard to believe, but it's true. A majority of Canadians do choose U.S. carriers when flying to the States. Air travel used to be something we were quite good at. Air Canada and Canadian Airlines have an enviable reputation. But when it comes to trans-border traffic, they're not the airlines of choice.
There are a wide variety of packages to Hawaii, ranging from the one island.
The only market Canada's airlines have sewn up is a scheduled holiday travel, mainly to Florida, but also to the southwestern U.S. and Hawaii.
We also offer packages that do more than one island.
Canada has almost all of this leisure business, but in the end it only amounts to about 18% of the total market. Oh, you're the person with the ticket.
Yeah, I'm the one with the ticket exchange.
I'm sorry. This is where the money is, business traffic. And this is where U.S. carriers win the competition. And then you'll be boarding through gate letter A.
Well, it's really the schedules and the timing more than the airlines. So this fits my schedule.
I'm going to Phoenix.
So you couldn't get there on a Canadian carrier anyway?
That's right. So that's why I'm going American.
Well, first of all, I'm a transplanted Canadian. I live in the U.S. and I fly U.S. carriers all the time. And there's not very much service out of this country into the U.S. You can't get a non-stop flight from here to Las Vegas, for example. I mean, you can go on a charter flight, but not on a scheduled airline.
The U.S. companies win this business because they have more flights to more cities. They also operate like a bus service, stopping to drop off and pick up passengers, and this keeps their planes full. Canada's planes can only fly directly to a handful of U.S. destinations and back. They can't engage in cabotage, that is, move passengers around the United States.
We want to take a bold approach to these negotiations to explore the prospect of an open regime.
The Federal Transport Minister, Doug Lewis, believes these current restrictions on Canada's airlines put them at a disadvantage. The solution, he says, is to renegotiate the Canada-U.S. Air Agreement to further deregulate air traffic between the two countries.
I believe that a liberal agreement with cabotage is essential for Canadian carriers so that we can fully access the U.S. market and redress the structural imbalance. The fact is that consumers, communities, and airlines on both sides of the border are not benefiting the way they could.
But critics say this deregulation will further weaken our airlines.
The ultimate impact will be sort of accelerating the demise of the two Canadian carriers. It'll force a quicker sort of a disappearance of Canadian Airlines, pushing them into the hands of American Airlines, and it'll accelerate the downfall of Air Canada, eventually forcing them into the hands either of a European or an Asian carrier.
Fred Lazar is an economist at York University, a transportation expert. He says to compete with U.S. carriers, Canada would have to add many new flights per day, and even that has problems.
To do so, essentially you have to become an American-based carrier, and that requires setting up a massive hub and spoke network in the U.S. That necessitates, first of all, finding a hub, and there are very few attractive ones left, and secondly, committing anywhere from $1.5 billion to $2 billion in equipment, and then finding the people, gates, slots, etc., resources that are simply not available to Canadian carriers.
A lot of the pressure for open skies is coming from the dozen or so Canadian cities with big airports. They want more access to U.S. destinations.
Okay, that's perfect.
David Frank advises Vancouver on this issue.
For example, here in Vancouver, we can only fly to 7 points in the United States by law, and only one of them, Chicago, is off the coast. And that really restricts our ability to do business in the United States.
Canada is already facing a lean and mean U.S. industry. Gone are the small airlines born in the era of deregulation. Big carriers that were weakened by this competition, Pan Am, Continental, Eastern, are bankrupt. Picking over the remains are the mega carriers, American, Delta, United, US Air, and Northwest. These are the predators. Their passenger fleet is 13 times larger than Canada's. US Air is one of the smallest, yet it's twice as big as Air Canada and Canadian combined. Canadian Airlines is well aware of the threat total open skies poses to its future. It's not in favor of opening the playing field to allow Canadian and U.S. planes to pick up and drop off passengers in each other's territory. Canadian's competitor, Air Canada, does want open skies, including limited cabotage. It feels it has enough business to move passengers from one American city to another. But both airlines want to get rid of the popular system of pre-clearing U.S. customs and immigration in Canada. Internationally, the playing field is getting smaller because the airline business is dividing up into giant trading blocks. Europe is one, Asia and North America are the other big two.
British Airways.
A privatized British Airways, already the largest international carrier, is buying stakes in airlines in Europe and is considering a stake in one of the huge but financially weak U.S. carriers. Economist Fred Lazar is not so optimistic.
Probably within a 10-year time, what you'll have is about 7 or 8 surviving international carriers, and they'll have a network of sort of regionally affiliated national carriers and then sort of commuter carriers. So you have sort of a 3-tier market evolve.
So Canada's going to be a feeder service to some larger international carrier.
Exactly. You know, Canada will essentially become sort of a small market feeding into the large international cities.
The bilateral negotiations are bound to have an impact on the domestic market. A flyer may still be able to get from one coast to another, but he or she may have to pass through a U.S. hub to get there.
For Buzz Wagner, who ran over half a mile to catch his plane. For Gail Cowan, who landed in Winnipeg.
In the midst of all the concern about the future of Canada's airlines, Canadian is celebrating the dawn of civilized air travel. It's referring to its move into Canada's newest air terminal, a state-of-the-art building at Toronto's Pearson International Airport. What this fanfare overlooks are the building's other major tenants. There's American Airlines, British Airways, Lufthansa. Undaunted by the prospect of further Canadian competition, these mega carriers have been buying up routes and space in Canada. They're strengthening their position to be ready for the day when we have free trade in air travel, not just in North America, but also globally.